Hey, it's JJ Conway. I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera. So I've just put up a slide. I hope that you can hear me. If you can hear me okay, do me a favor and give me some likes and some loves or some way of knowing that you can hear me. Let me know that you can hear me. Drop in the chat where you're coming from, where you're watching from, and what you hope to learn today or what you've gotten out of this. Give me something. Say hi. Yeah, do that. Say hi. Give me a smiley face, a like, a love, or something like that. And let me know that you are that you are here. I'm making sure that we're good on the free conference call. It looks like we're good. Let me go ahead and turn the free conference call into Q&A mode. Okay, we're in Q&A mode, which means if you're listening on free conference call, then you can if you're listening on free conference call, then what you would do is you would raise your hand and do a *6. And in some browsers, some phones, it'll ask you to also push 1. That'll put you in the queue. And when I get to a break point in the discussion today, I will go ahead and answer those questions. And so today I'm going to teach a lesson from our Success Strategies course. I'm really excited about this course. I'm going to be scheduling a half-day Zoom on it. It'll probably, I say half day, there's 14 principles. And so it'll probably end up being a whole day, show up a little, sleep in a little, have a little lunch or something, and then go the rest of the day. I want to record a new version. And so if you're interested in being in the studio audience, either live in the room or live in the Zoom, let me know. That the recording for that is not going to be publicly broadcast. It's going to be a private event. And I'm basically just going to charge maybe $10 or so to help cover the cost of the room, but I need to get a good recording in. So you're going to get to have your name and branding and all that attached to the class. So it's actually a super good deal for anybody that wants to participate. All right. So I'm really, really excited to bring you this lesson. If you haven't heard of the success strategies, usually we do it at the end of the year as part of the countdown to your best year ever, which we didn't this end of the year because of all the craziness that was going on in the family and everything like that. But I'm going to tell you these strategies, these success strategies, they will change your life. So when we think about success strategies, and again, I want to welcome you. I see we've got some more people coming in on. We've got multiple platforms that we're broadcasting to. I want to welcome you to tonight's class. If you can't see me, it's because something is weird. I cannot find my good camera, and I don't know what's going on. But I do have the slide up just so that you have something to see or listen. Or wait, yeah. So you have something to see as you're listening to me. I do apologize for that, but I figured it was more important to just go ahead and go and teach the class than to sit here and try to troubleshoot for another 20 minutes trying to figure out why I can't get the camera to work right, okay? Because, your time is precious, and this is a good content, and I really want you to get it, okay? So what we're talking about are success strategies that will elevate your life. See, I don't know a crystal ball to look into the future and say, here's what's going to happen 6 months from now. But one thing I do know is that there are specific skills, behaviors, and attitudes that you can put in place today that will allow you to succeed no matter what life throws at you. And so today's time-tested success strategy that we're going to cover is this principle of good, better, best. And it's been really made real to me as a professional speaker who travels all around the world. So it's been since pre-pandemic since I traveled around the world. Let's be honest about that. But before then, I was traveling around the world. I traveled with John Maxwell to other countries to help teach and speak. Whenever I go and I have to work out, and most of the time you go somewhere and you have a workout room, or if you don't think you're going to have one, you can pack some bands or anything like that. But one recent time, I get into my hotel room and I had forgotten to pack anything, and so I was using water bottles. And so it was mostly body weight exercises like push-ups and squats. And so it worked out, right? But think about how many of us back in the day would have been like, well, I forgot my weight, so I can't work out. And then instead of doing what you could do, you just didn't do anything. Like, if I can't do it with excellence or perfection, I'm not going to do it at all, right? How much of our life has we missed out on with that philosophy? Huh? How much of our life have we missed out on with that philosophy? I feel like even the younger we are, the more likely we are to have missed out on the opportunities of life because we are afraid that if we can't do it well, or if we can't do it amazingly, then we're just not going to do it at all, right? And so for our purposes today, I would like to invite you to consider this model of good, better, best. I know that any given morning I wake up, the absolute best for my workout would be a full hour of working out, whether that's walking the trail or it's doing weights or it's doing yoga or a combination. Okay. And and working it hard, not just kind of checking the box. Okay, I showed up, I put on my cute little workout outfit, but doing a good hard work or a good hard stretch. Okay. But sometimes you don't have a full hour, and whatever happens and things switch around, and you do what you do, and you might not feel good about it, but it's better than nothing. And so, I think about how I'm very happy to have the trainer that I have online. It's an online training system, and they have pre-recorded videos now, and sometimes they have live videos, and they have pre-recorded. So I really have no excuse not to work out at all. But like, if I didn't have access to the water bottles, I could have walked around the hotel. I could have gone up and down the stairs. I've done that sometimes. I've even made walking videos during the times when I'm walking up and down the stairs at the hotel because it's too cold to go outside. Or sometimes I just don't want to, I might be speaking at an event and I don't want to be out in the public when I'm trying to focus on what I'm going to do. I'm just going to walk up and down the stairs in the back section, that stairwell that's not painted, don't look good. So, working out with just walking around the floor of the hotel. I've done that before. I've had people kind of look at me funny because they're like, oh, okay, this is the 5th time she's walking past us. Well, next time fix your weight room, right? But that's good. And maybe working out with water bottles because I don't have weights. Maybe that's better. A full hour with my actual heavy weights, of course, would have been best. But no matter where you are, you get something. You take some small step towards your goal, towards your dream. And so let's apply that to building wealth. Building wealth together, having an abundant life isn't just about getting rich. It's about breaking through the paradigms of money and abundance that have held us back. And it's a lifestyle of abundance. It's not name it and claim it. It's not positive thinking. It's a way of living and thinking that starts from moving out of the scarcity mindset and into an abundance mindset and a prosperity mindset. Okay. And so I'm looking forward to teaching the workshop again soon, From Poverty to Abundance, right? But these lessons, these success strategies are part of the lifestyle that you live when you're moving from poverty to abundance. Because abundance isn't just about money in the bank. Oh, I wish my camera was on so I could face you eyeball to eyeball and emphasize this point that abundance isn't just money in the bank. There are plenty of people out there, I know, because some of them come to me as clients, who have lots of money in the bank, but they have a scarcity life. They have a miserable life. Their children don't associate with them anymore. Their parents don't associate with them anymore. They don't have true friends. They don't have friendships. They have userships. And so I want you to understand that abundance isn't just about cash money. And I use the example of this good, better, best for working out while I'm traveling, but it applies not just to your health and wealth, health and fitness, but also to every aspect of your life. It's amazing how uncomfortable we get talking about money. I start off with health because everybody feels comfortable talking about that. And I know many of you come to my channel because you are trying to build wealth, but we still get real uncomfortable talking about it. And money is just one of those things that people are uncomfortable with. And the more you get comfortable with it, the more you make it familiar in your life, then the more it flows into your life. I remember, I remember when I was in grad school. So this was what, 98, 97. And I went to church on a Friday night, and the bishop's tithe check from his investments and pension that week, y'all, we went up there every Friday night, and when he was home, his tithe check was weekly. His tithe check from his investments and his pension was $3,000. And I sat there and thought, wow, I only make $1,700 a month. His weekly tithe check is more than my entire month's pay, and I make more than my parents made. Like the day I graduated from the Air Force Academy, making $1,700 a month, I already made more money than my parents made combined. And I remember saying to myself, you know what? I can't wait until my tithe check is more than my entire month's pay. And that at the time, it seemed like such a huge, huge number. Y'all, let me tell you, again, I wish I had my screen on so I could see you and tell you this story. I remember back then, I was so broke, y'all. I couldn't even give my tithe check completely tithes. Like I had to split it up into the offerings. So what I was really giving to the church was a tithe, but I split it up so it looked like I had offerings for every service. I knew that the Bible says to give the tithe, and I was going to give the tithe. But you know what? I had nothing else to give. I had so much debt. I had so many bills. I had so many problems. And I remember that $1,700 a month went real fast when my rent was $400, and I had a sticky note that I had all my stuff on, because that's all the bills I could afford, right? We didn't have smartphones back then, y'all. Okay, so life is a little more complicated back then, but I didn't have cable, I didn't have any of that stuff. But my house was $400, and my apartment was $400 a month. My car note was $350 a month. I mean, y'all, $1,700 a month, and that's gross. That's not even take home. I forget what the take home was. I think it ended up being like $1,400, but like the tithe on it was like it was $168 was the tithe, y'all. And I broke it up into 120 big tithe check. And then the rest of that money was like $1 for each of the services and Bible studies. I mean, that church I was in at that time, we had Bible study like almost every day because our headquarters were so close. We would drive out there. So, I mean, I was in service almost every day of the week, twice on Sundays. So anyway, this is how broke I was. But can you imagine? Yes, you can imagine, because I know some of you listening to me today have done this. Your gross pay is $1,700 a month, and you have already tied up more than half of your gross pay with a car and an apartment. That is not smart. I wasn't a financial planner back then. I was just a young lieutenant making more money than my parents did every month, and I thought I was doing something good. But then you know what? There's this thing called credit cards, and I didn't understand when I was in college that you put things on the credit cards and the minimum payments. Well, after a while, those minimum payments, they turn into big payments. Woo! Now, this has nothing to do with the good, better, best. I'm sure some of you are thinking. Okay. But the reason I'm explaining that is because back at that time, I couldn't do best. I couldn't even do good. I mean, y'all, I was making Pop-Tarts with some jelly and some flour and some water and some eggs. Okay, that's how broke I was. In fact, one time, my ex, and I told him not to do this, but he was trying to be lazy, and he mailed my new debit card for my bank account along with the letter that had the pin in it. And one of the neighbors stole my bag of mail and cleaned out my account. Later on, the cops caught them, but for like 2 weeks, I had no money. For 1 week, I had no money. I'm sorry. And I literally ate oatmeal. I had one canister of oatmeal. I literally ate oatmeal for a week. That was my well, I couldn't do best, but we can't let not being able to do best stop us from doing good. And sometimes we can do a little better. When we can do better, we do better, But at the time when I was sitting in that church service, it seemed like it was so far away that I would ever get to making that kind of money. But then 10 years later, me and my ex, we were making way more than that. My ex-husband and I, we wasted it, y'all. We were traveling all over the place. Not the travel wasn't the waste, but how we didn't invest the money. We spent it and had fun. I grew up with very little. He grew up in the hood. We were pretty cool with the money we were making. I mean, we had our real estate and our military paycheck. I mean, we were pulling in $30,000, $40,000 a month, and we were like, yeah, big time in it. No kids, double income, no kids, I soon found myself in over $100,000 of debt. And let me tell you something. You don't get $845,000 in debt by making $1,700 a month. They don't loan you almost $1 million until you've proven you can handle that kind of money, right? And so a lot of you today listening to me, you want to be a millionaire, but at the same time, you've never made $1 million. And deep down inside, it just seems too big. So you got to reprogram your mind. And first off, make it, I don't know, smaller to make it familiar. And honestly, look, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I bet many of you listening right now, don't even need to make $1 million next month. Now, I know I got some high earners on my channel. I know I've got some high earners on my channel, and I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're watching wherever your status is today. Brother, I'm so glad to see you on. You always make my heart smile when I see that you're on. I'm going to say it again, though. I bet many of you listening do not need to make $1 million next month. And although I know I've got some high earners who listen, and you'll either listen live or you'll listen after the fact with a podcast or through the SoundCloud or the YouTube channel, whatever it is. You've watched me go from 6-figure debt to 6-figure income, and now you're on the journey with me to 7 figures and beyond, right? And so I'm glad for those of you who are on that journey with me. But for most of you, man, if you could just get an extra $3,000 or $5,000 this month, so that your heart doesn't sink when that check engine light comes on again, oh man, that would be the stuff. If you could just have a little breathing room at the end of your month, I mean, that's really all you need right now. Just the ability to go, to really just be able to breathe. But first, you have to make that welcome in your life. And as you journey to higher levels of income, you got to make higher levels of income welcome. Now, that doesn't mean that you're wearing the highfalutinous clothes, you're buying out the biggest house or anything, but you're making the bigger numbers welcome. There's all kinds of tricks that people do to make the high numbers familiar and welcome. I mean, you could write it down. Y'all know I am the sticky note queen when it comes to planning and goals. I put that sticky note with my goals somewhere where I see it several times a day. You know, like my mirror, or if I'm traveling, I have this little spot on the side of my laptop that's like really, really perfect for me to put an affirmation or a goal sticky note. One class I was in, everybody got one of those Chinese money tree plants, and we named the trees after the amount we wanted. Now, look, I am not superstitious. Anybody who knows me knows I think superstitions are bondage of the enemy, okay? So I don't believe in the superstition behind the money tree, okay? But we all got them in that class, and I named mine Juan Fitty. We called him Juan Fitty, for the 150 million I'm going to use to change communities. And the power in the tree isn't the magic superstition, okay? And look, I looked it up before I got one, y'all, because I don't mess around with the enemy. But it's about the nurturing of a dream. The realization that like a plant grows, your dream takes time and watering and nurturing. So you get a plant. It doesn't have to be a money tree, but name it and care for it. And every time you water it, see it, fertilize it, think about your dream. And what's really crazy is whatever number you name it after, you're going to start seeing it everywhere. So we got Juan Fitty, and not long after we named him not long after we named him Juan Fitty, we started seeing 150 everywhere. 150-day journey, $1.50 sale. You know, you name yours Tui for 2 million. I had a friend who named hers Tui for 2 million. You're going to start to see 2 everywhere, like 222 on the clock or in the mileage, or it's like 2.2, 2.2. Like you're just attracting that number in your life, and it eventually no longer becomes big. You actually become desensitized to it over time. And then what begins to happen is you begin to expect it. You begin to expect it. It's like, where are you? I'm looking for you. Okay. So I feel like we really want to dig into this principle And if you're interested, do drop me a note in my Building Wealth Together Facebook group. Drop me a note, send me a message. I may not respond right away, but I do read them as I see them come through. Drop me a note and let me know that you want to dig deeper into this, and I will let you know about that special class where I'm going to do a re-record for 2023, because I recorded all of these in 3 or 4 years ago. So we're going to refresh these lessons for the new age, for the new normal, for the post-pandemic world, right? And so I want to do that, and I'd like you to be with me. Being a successful entrepreneur, it isn't just about earning money. And there's one regret that nearly every entrepreneur has, and that's the price they pay at home and the price that they pay for their health and their well-being. So if I could have one area of awareness that I would like to have increased over the last 20 years as I have built my various companies, it would have been in this area of personal relationships and taking better care of my health. When I was in the military, I had several nasty falls. Jumped out of an airplane back when the training used round chutes, and they trained you how to PLF, parachute landing fall. So you kind of like slam into the ground, and you try to slam just right so you don't break everything, right? And so you learn how to do that, but there's still a residual impact on your bones and on your joints. And of course, being tough, trying to prove that we're just as good, many military women never allowed ourselves to really heal. We just pushed through it. We pushed through physical trauma, and we pushed through mental trauma, especially in our 20s. So, like 20 years plus some car accidents later, I got permanent damage to my discs, to my arm. And now that I'm retired from the military, I realize I've allowed too much distance to come between my family and my close friends. And I lost touch with, and I know that that's part of the price you pay, right? Some of this is part of the price you pay. When you're sick and you're the entrepreneur, you do kind of have to push through some things, right? You got to work when you're sick, and you got to do some of that. But sometimes that price is too high. So you got to make sure you're doing the math. You want to get that family and relationship math right, okay? Because you don't want to do irreparable damage. I'll never forget what Miss Julie said after my retirement ceremony. She saw the look on my son's face when I was giving him his thank you gift, and she said it showed so much love and respect that she could tell I'd done a good job with him. And that's despite him being on his 8th school in 9th grade due to my military career. And I hadn't gotten everything right, either as a military career officer or even as an entrepreneur. But how many of us do? I mean, how many of us? Okay, when the COVID-19 lockdown started, okay, one of my mentors advised us on how to cope with what he saw was lasting structural change. And it reminded me of all of us who lost our businesses after 9/11. How many of you remember that? Does anybody remember that? I don't think there's anybody on my Facebook who's been with me long enough to remember my business that I had right after 9/11. I had a website design business, and I had just started my little Airport Walkers of America. I had just started getting my first little paying subscribers, and then all of a sudden, boom, the travel industry was changed forever. My business model did not work. That mentor with this whole COVID thing shared with us areas that we needed to really be hypersensitive to. And you might remember some of this because I captured a lot of his lessons in my COVID survival guide, which is actually still out there, and it's still free of charge. So go check it out. We'll probably pull it down soon, but go check it out if you haven't already. One of the areas that he mentioned was at home. And he said, be sure we stop every single day and really have an eyeball to eyeball, heart to heart talk with our spouses, with our kids, with our loved ones, really asking them, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What are you thinking about? Are you scared? Are you excited? Are you curious? And this is the hard part. To turn everything off, y'all. Turn everything off and sit with them one-on-one. And then also as a family to make sure that they didn't assume that everybody was okay. And how many of us did that? How many of us are still doing that? because people aren't okay. People are not okay. I feel like I'm experiencing more loss in my life now than I was during the time of COVID. And it's not because of COVID, but I'm sure COVID weakened people and that pre-existing conditions flare up or what have you, right? People aren't okay. And it's okay to not be okay right now. Depression is silent. Fear is silent. Resentment is silent. Anxiety is silent. Somebody could be having really bad anxiety, and oftentimes depression and fear, anxiety carries a level of shame, self-shame that goes with that. And people feel like they should be able to keep it all together. Well, I should be able to keep it together. Everybody else seems like they're keeping it together and I'm not. So then they feel bad about themselves and it's silent. And so I don't think it's enough to just ask. I think we got to push. No, really, how you doing? Are you sure you're good? Resentment is quiet too. And there's people who could be resentful, right? I remember when people were in the throes of COVID and everybody was home complaining about how they're sick and tired of Netflixing, right? And I'm sitting there like, I'm going to work with all these people. We were working extra long shifts and we did start splitting it up. But basically, I was working the one shift and somebody else was working a different shift. I'm going to work with all these people who refuse to wear their masks and they refuse to social distance because they don't care because they didn't get sick. Well, guess who got sick? Guess who got sick, y'all? Guess who got sick? I got sick. And the sad part about it was I got sick, but I got sick with symptoms that they didn't know back then was symptoms of COVID. We know now that they were symptoms of COVID, but back then it was a very short list of symptoms that would, oh yeah, you've got COVID. We don't have enough tests, so we don't have to test you. If you have this, if you have a fever, you have a cough, you got COVID, right? Well, I got sick. They didn't get sick. I got sick. I'm the one Lysol in the office, but I'm the one that got sick, right? And I got resentful. I did. I had to really pray about that. You tired of Netflix? How about you go to work and I stay home watching Netflix? Because when I'm sick hard. I didn't get to watch nothing when I was sick, and I'm, y'all, I'm married to the one teacher that actually sat at a desk and worked from 8 to 4 every day when he was home for COVID, when they closed the school down, right? So I really had to pray about that resentment, y'all. I really had to pray about that resentment. And for many of us, a lot of damage was done in our families from being home with your spouse or with your kids for much longer than you're normally with them. There's some things that got on your nerves and you said or did some things. I might have done some things that are hard to recover from. As the entrepreneur, we can and we need to be laser focused on our business and everything required to run it. Yes, but remember, the reason why you're running a business is because you don't want to give everything you've got, because you want to give everything you've got to your family, because you want a better life for your kids. You want a better life for your family. You want to be able to do things more as a family. You want to have resources, have security for them. You're doing it all for your family. So you don't want to end up at the promised land of success at the expense of everything you were doing it for. How many people gave up their health to generate their wealth and then spend all their wealth trying to get their health back? And there's not much I remember, honestly, about anybody's military retirement other than the guy who I talked about at my retirement, who told his story of false accusations that were designed to keep him from being the first Black person to be at the top of his intel class. But one thing I do remember is this constant theme of take care of your family because you want them to still be there at the end of your career. Too many military members and entrepreneurs get to the promised land and their families are long gone. Thing is, it actually doesn't take much, especially if they understand why you're working so hard. They understand that when you're in your office at 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night, they know what you're doing. The thing is, you're getting up early and going to the office. They know what you're doing. They still want to feel important. Deborah Tillman had a real good point. Y'all remember her, America's Super Nanny? Well, she's the one that rescued me before she got on TV when the state shut down my big boy's daycare provider. He was 1 year, and I was desperate. She took little man into her happy home daycare private school, and I am forever grateful, y'all. And she said that children see it through their eyes, not your eyes. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, of course, I'm working hard. I want you to go to good schools. And for their perspective, it's like, yeah, but you said we'd go for a walk and then you didn't. You didn't come back. Oh, yeah, I got the deal, man. I aced the interview. They don't care about my view of it. They care about them. And remember, how does a child spell love? T-I-M-E. And so with your health, we all know that nobody has time to work out every single day as much as they want. Nobody has time to eat well, right? Nobody has time to sleep 8 hours a day. We know we don't have time for that, right? That's what we tell ourselves. But you also don't have time to be sick in bed for a whole weekend. You don't have time for that either. So there are laws of the body, just so there are laws of the universe. There's laws of the mind. There's laws of the soul. Laws of the body and the laws of nutrition, laws of movement, laws of recuperation, and laws of sanitation. So as you're building your business, make sure you are taking care of you. Look at these areas and make sure. Every day I walk, weights, or yoga for at least 30 minutes. And look, I know I don't have time for that. I know I don't have time for it. I don't have time for it. You don't have time for it either. I don't have time for it. The whole time I'm doing it, I'm thinking, oh, I've got other things I got to do. But it's so important that I do it. It's so important to get your heart rate up. It's good to get that blood flow. It's good to move, and it helps you get through times of difficulty faster. And many of you might remember back when I had shingles. I don't know if y'all knew this, but about the time that I had shingles, I learned how Tony Horton, the guy who created the P90X, he came down with shingles in the absolute worst place, y'all. He got shingles in his ear, and it wiped out his equilibrium. Tony Horton, the biggest fitness guy in the world, was in bed for 6 months. Wow. Couldn't stand. Wow. So he had to crawl to the kitchen. Goodness gracious. And after a year of that, he was still recovering. And he said that for people who are over 40, it's flexibility that's key. It's balance and speed. And he said, if you look at all the top athletes, what makes a top boxer, top swimmer, top gymnast? What makes a top football player or baseball or football, soccer player, right? What makes them the best? Speed, balance, flexibility. And when you look at these 3 areas, he's saying you have to have those. And so he bought this thing called a slack line. It's difficult, right? It's more difficult than you think. He said it took him about 3 weeks to take the first step to be able to get on it, and then about 3 weeks without falling off. But he said balance is key, and speed and flexibility. So you've got to make time for that. You got to make time for your family. You got to make time for your health. Stephen Covey said, don't be too busy sawing to stop and sharpen the saw. He also said the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And so you have to lead from home, and leading at home is important. And one of the lessons in this success strategy series that we've talked about before is the cobbler shoe syndrome, that the cobbler's children are the only ones in the school whose shoes are falling apart because dad's so busy serving customers. Or the painter and decorator or the builder who started an extension on their house, or they're doing some work on their house and they never finish it because they're so busy doing things for other people. And it applies to everything you know, anything you can think of. It's easy to do for other people. It's easier to do for other people than it is to do for yourself sometimes, or for the ones you love. So this is a key principle. We're all leaders. We all have to remember to lead at home. But what is leadership at home? And I got a whole lesson on leading at home coming up, but I want to talk about this just real quick, okay? What is leadership at home? It's the same as leadership everywhere else. There's this quote that says the things that matter most must never be at the mercy of the things that matter least. So what are the things that matter most with family? And what are the things that matter least? It's worth thinking about, isn't it? The first rule of business, We're talking about leadership within a business. The first rule of business is profit. And I know probably many of you are thinking, wait, that's not right. We're all about values, JJ. We're all about helping people and all that jazz, right? Well, Zig Ziglar said you can help a lot more people if your business has a profit than you can without. And if you haven't got a profit, then the business is really dying, isn't it? It's not sustainable. In fact, the IRS doesn't call that a business if you're not profiting for too long. They call that a hobby. And it's the same for family. Is it important to make money for a family, or is it something else? What's the first rule of family? I tell you what, let me tell you something. I was an amazing parent, y'all, until I had children. Oh man. I was going to be that perfect parent, y'all. For 10 weeks, I nursed that boy exclusively. He didn't have a pacifier, no TV. Well, then all my vacation time ran out and I had to go back to work. I took my pump to work, and I tell you, I was as crunchy granola as you could be as a full-time military mom, right? So I get to the daycare after work, and he's sitting there with this pacifier, and the lady hands me back the baggies of milk that I had pumped for him. I don't know what you expected me to do with these. And at that moment, y'all, I realized that all my great ideas about parenting were at the mercy of a whole lot of other people. And as your kids get older, one thing you learn is each of them have their own personalities. So you have to learn what matters to them. And in my case, you got to learn what you can use to bribe them. Little man loves good food. He is easily bribed with food or money. I pay him a lot to read. All those YouTube videos he makes about the books he reads, he earns money for that. The baby, I bribe him with video games to eat bitter veggies. Now you might say, well, when I was a kid, you ate what was on your plate. Well, I got some hard-headed, strong-willed boys, and they seriously will starve just to make a point, which little man did. He didn't eat for 4 days once. And when your kids are ADHD, they need food to help their self-control, attitude, and focus. So then I realized this was not a battle I was willing to fight again, because I needed him to be okay at school. So I try not to do things that keep them from eating. The little one, he loves to read. Taking away a book, which used to crack me up because this started when he was so young that he couldn't even read yet. You take away a book, his whole world would have been over. For the big one, it was the Xbox and his phone. When he was younger, though, it was time with friends. He's very social. I'm not. But once I figured out he was social, I tried to make more time for him to do social things. The little one loves piano. At 3, he was plinking out the keys till he figured out how to play his favorite songs. The big one did not like piano. He'd always sneak into the guitar teacher's office before his piano lesson. He loves strings. He's amazing on cello. Now he plays trumpet and band, and he's in the top band, and he's really good. But his true love is strings. So you gotta know your kids, and you gotta know what makes them feel loved and what makes them feel not loved. And you gotta know what feeds into their self-image in a positive way. There is a great book, 5 Love Languages, about how some people feel loved when you spend time on them. Some feel more loved when you buy little gifts for them. Some feel more loved when you say nice things to them. I mean, who wouldn't want all those things, right? But if I had to choose, at the end of the day, I don't really care much about gifts. I like gifts, don't get me wrong. But I care about you spending time with me. I actually love to hear nice things, but I've become so accustomed to people lying that I don't always trust it anymore. I believe what you do, not what you say. So you got to find out what makes your kids feel loved. If they're the kind that like to hear nice things, but you're the kind of person that doesn't care about hearing nice things because you don't trust it anymore, you got to learn how to say nice things. What makes them feel important to you? It makes Cubby feel important to me when I stop what I'm doing and look at him in the eye when he comes to tell me something. And what feeds their image in a positive way? What feeds their self-image in a positive way? Remember, the main thing is to keep the main thing. So you have to kind of go looking for what to do with your family. It's like a process of discovery. Many of you probably won't agree with what I'm saying because you don't have your own list, right? You don't even know what you like. and we are trying to, we are trying to shape their self-image, right? I mean, it is kind of important as parents, self-images and bond building and character. I mean, all that stuff sounds important. Forming good habits, that's pretty important, right? There's all kinds of good things. There's all kinds of good things and behaviors and things we could do. Reading every day. It's a good thing. Swimming 3 times a week, great thing. Chores every day, good habits. But what's the first rule of family? The first rule of family, and sometimes I have to tell my kids this when they ask if they can do some reckless thing, and I say no, and they poke out that bottom lip like, please. What do we have to say as parents? It's my job to keep you safe. I'm not your friend. I'm your mama. And so the first rule of family is to keep you safe and love you unconditionally. And that's the most important thing that we can do. Keep you safe and love you unconditionally. But there's more to it than that. That's just the starting point. Keep you, love you, keep you alive, which is no small thing when you have 7-year-old and 17-year-old boys. So keep them alive, safe, loving them unconditionally. So now if you think about it, you've got the choice for buying a new Porsche 911 Turbo S, right? Or keep looking after them, save their life, right? There's a quote that's often attributed to Mother Teresa, although I don't think she said it like this, that says, if you want to change the world, love your kids. Start with your kids. Start with your family. That's your responsibility, y'all. Love yourself and love your kids. Keep them safe and love them unconditionally. That's number one. But there's more to it than that. Got to keep them safe. Got to love them unconditionally. But we want their highest and best use of their life. We got to create a safe space for them to flourish. And that's more than just loving them unconditionally and knowing accepted. It means helping them develop their potential. Create a space. Well, what does that mean? It means allowing them to kind of find their way in an environment where they feel safe to experiment, to reach out and make mistakes and to try things. So it's both the physical space and the emotional space. Both physical and emotional is needed so they can flourish. We got to model successful values and behaviors. And that's so critical. It's really easy for me to say, oh, go play the trumpet or go swim. But they got to see you doing it every day. See, if they see you doing it every day when they're growing up, then they're more likely to do it. I mean, come on. If it's important to you, you'd be doing it yourself anyway, right? So why would you tell them to say please and thank you and say please and thank you? But then you say whatever, you mumble. Somebody says good morning, you go, and I know people who do that, y'all. You model the behavior they learn. And this creates a bit of a conundrum because you might be working very hard on your business as an entrepreneur. You are absolutely hustling, making it happen, and you may not be home as much as you'd like. And there's a downside to that. I mean, the upside is you're modeling the work ethic that you want them to have. You want them to work hard. You want them to really try your best at something and work at something for the good of the family or whatever else, right? So you're modeling that behavior. It's good for them to learn the value of acquiring the resources necessary for the things you need and desire, right? All these things that you want, they take resources, they take energy, they take time, they take money, right? And so if you've got money and you can create abundance type of an environment, I mean, if you haven't got the money, you're probably struggling to pay for the essentials of life. So it's good to model that. You got to model that. But we're not just building wealth for us. We're building for the next generation. And I think that the important part is you got to keep money in perspective. It's critical, okay? You can do so much more right with money, and you can give your family experiences that they wouldn't otherwise have, right? And you can provide safety for them, protection. Those things are easier if you have money. You can live where it's safer and where they're more protected. It's easier if you have money. So if your number one priority is to keep them safe, then money is important. Keeping them healthy. Woo! It is expensive to keep your family healthy because it costs money to eat healthy. Now, it doesn't mean you can't eat healthy if you don't have a lot of money. But again, we go with good, better, best, right? Real protein is a lot more expensive than carbohydrates. Organic food is a lot more expensive than the others. And I learned was I went through Dr. Amen's brain health certification. I learned that some of our superfoods absorb a lot of pesticides and chemicals. And so, if they absorb the nutrients from the air and the sun and the soils, I guess it readily makes sense. And they'd be also the highest ones to absorb all the pesticides and stuff. And one of the things he said that really surprised me is that organic blueberries are one of the healthiest foods you can eat. But regular blueberries are one of the most toxic because they absorb pesticides and toxins at a higher rate than other fruit. So here you are thinking you're taking care of your health, but you're actually making things worse. So you need resources like time, energy, money. You also need boundaries. And I know we all struggle with this, right? Because we're like, oh, well, we'll let him off too. But I think this is something that we probably don't. These are things that are hard for a lot of us because we've allowed our own guilt, or we've allowed our situations, or we've allowed our mistakes to kind of push us into allowing others to conduct themselves in a way that's not beneficial for us and long term is not beneficial for them. But our kids have to learn how to experiment. And that's really hard for us to be able to sit back and be like, okay, I'm going to watch you struggle. I mean, it's hard enough, for in business or anything, people, it's hard enough for us to make our own mistakes, let alone watch our children make their own mistakes, But both of my boys, they're different from each other. They're similar in some ways, but they're different. And allowing them to find their own passions, encouraging them to not have to be carbon copies of one another, finding what one loves and finding what the other loves. Like those are all the different kinds of things that we do as a parent. And then we nurture it and we give them a soft place to land. But guess what? We're not going to do it right. We're not going to do it right. We're going to falter. We're going to fail. We're going to make the wrong decision. We're going to do what the Bible says we shouldn't do, which is provoke our children. We're going to have this issue and that issue, and it's just not going to be as great as it could be. But I'm telling you today, don't stop doing what you got to do. Look at it from a perspective of good, better, best. I'm doing the best I can today, and maybe tomorrow I get a situation I can't do the best I can, or maybe I made a choice that prevents me from doing the best I can. But what's the next best thing I can do? What's the good thing that I can do? What can I do a little bit better? Don't do nothing. Choose to do good. And if you can do better, do better. And if the best is attainable, do the best. Somebody one time really spoke to my heart when they said a lot of people think that they can slack off today and give 110% tomorrow. As a military gal, I was always a big fan of that phrase. I'm going to go 110% because y'all know me. I go hard and play hard. I work hard. I play hard. I work hard on my business, and then I want to get out there and snowboard, and I want to go out there and body surf. I want to go out there and do stuff, right? But the thing is, every day we get 100% allotted to us. You cannot say today I'm only going to do 80% and I'm going to spend the rest of my night sitting on the couch with a video game and I'll just make up the other 20% tomorrow. It doesn't work like that because tomorrow you get another 100%. You don't get 120%. You don't get what was supposed to be tomorrow's energy, time, resources, and effort, and then also get what you left on the table today. That's not how it works. You get a whole new, it's like starting over. You get a whole new fresh set of downs, but guess what? It's still only 4 downs. They don't give you 5. You get a second down. And if you follow football, downs are each team gets 4 downs to make the ball a certain amount of way. And if you make that certain amount of way, 10 yards on the second down, they don't go and give you a fresh new set of 4 and say, oh, well, you left 2 back on the table. We're going to give you 2. So now you got 6. That's not how it works. You start over with 4. And every day we start off with 100%. Now, my 100% today may not be my 100% tomorrow because my 100% today, I might be energetic. I drank a Thai tea before I started teaching. So I'm a little on the energetic side, right? But tomorrow I got to drive to physical therapy and I might be real pain and a lot of soreness after physical therapy. So my 100% today may not be my 100% tomorrow, but whatever it is that's allotted to me for each day, whatever amount of time, health, strength, energy, resources, and relationships that is allotted to me for today or allotted for me to tomorrow, I do not get extra just because I decided to slack off and reserve some today. So for every day that I'm given, with every amount of energy that I'm given, with every amount of resources that I'm given, I am going to do my best to maximize it. And if I can't do something as well as I want to, I'm going to remember this principle of good, better, best. And I'm going to do the best I can in the moment that I can to take care of myself, to take care of my health, to take care of my body, to take care of my relationships, because all of those things impact how we build wealth. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing about this principle, number 11, good, better, and best. And I also hope that you will join me later for the rest of the success strategies. I'm so excited for this series, and we're going to be covering all of them throughout the course of the year. And if you want to get the jump start on it with a special one-day class, you reach out to me, because I don't know yet if I'm going to advertise it. If it fills up privately before I advertise, then I'm not going to advertise. All right. But I want to thank you all for being here with me today. I'm JJ Conway. Thank you so much for being a part of our success strategies training. Y'all take care and be blessed.